So, hello and welcome to another one of these weekly little videos I'm trying to make, talking about things that I've been discussing with teachers or issues that have come up when I've been giving talks or writing blog posts or just based on questions that people have sent in. Last week I was lucky enough to be in Switzerland, where I spoke at the ETAS one-day event on Saturday and did some work with SATE in Bern, and went to some other schools and met some teachers and even did some teaching in a gymnasium there, working with some lovely teenage kids down there. And one of the things that came up, particularly in response to my own comments about what I think is desirable to do when we're going through vocabulary exercises and when we're working with the words on the page, asking extra questions about the words on the page and adding to what's there, was the age-old question about how many new words do you think we should aim to teach, because what you're suggesting seems like a lot of language. Many of you may have heard the ancient and now highly discredited piece of research that suggests we can only learn 7 new words an hour, or 10 new words an hour, or 12 new words an hour. What you might not know is that all of this research was originally based on imaginary languages. So it would be something like, you'd be shown a picture of a cat and someone would tell you, in this imaginary language, cat is squababble. Okay, then you'd get a picture of a dog and they'd tell you, in this imaginary language, dog is basquabble. Okay, or whatever. And when you're learning words like this, where you're having to remember a sort of meaningless series of sounds connected to a particular image or a particular kind of semantic association, like a dog or a cat, it's obviously very difficult to retain all of these words in your head because you've got nothing to root them in apart from the images that have meaning for you. You've got no other language connected to the words that you're learning that makes sense of what you're experiencing. Actually, the idea of a minimum number of words, and particularly a low minimum number of words, is a claim or a myth that's been very thoroughly demolished. The first book I read that properly demolished this idea was Vocabulary Myths by a guy called Keith False. It's a really excellent read, and he has a whole chapter on sort of demolishing this research. I think from a teacher's point of view, the bigger question is really, how do you know whether words are new or not for your students? And how do you know which words are new for which students? And sometimes even, what do we mean by a word? So on one level, I think you have to accept that every student in your class comes with a different interior lexicon or set of vocabulary. Each student will know different things. Some things they will have seen before. You may be adding to what they can do with that or consolidating what they can do with that. You may be exploring a slightly different meaning or looking at a slightly different phrase or collocation using language they've seen before. Some students will know most of the words in most exercises you give them. Some students won't. And being able to say, in this class I'm taking in 12 new words, is just a sort of ridiculous concept, because we can't know until we go in and work with the language through exercises, through questions, through feedback that we're getting from our students, how much of what we're giving them is new. And if you take language like the following, this is from an exercise in Outcomes Pre-Intermediate, okay? I go to him for advice. Well, is that one word? Is that a phrase? Go to him for advice, go to her for advice. If the students have seen go and to and her and for and advice, is that a new word or not? Or is it a new chunk, or is it none of the above? She's very determined. She keeps going until she succeeds. Well, again, which bit's the word? Which bit is it we think's new? Or are we assuming that they've all been seen before? My dad's quite strict, but my mum's a bit softer. Well, is soft new there if they already know the idea of, oh, so soft? Or is it a sort of, slightly different twist on a word they've already encountered? So I think my message here would just be, stop worrying about the idea of new language in that sense. Obviously, we don't want to go in with 54 words that we're convinced students have never seen before, that are way above level, and just throw them at students. But if what we're doing is putting language into the mix on the assumption that some of it will be new for some people, much of it will be repeated encounters for most people, and that what we're doing is kind of working with that language and layering what students know about it, I think we can teach with a relatively clear conscience. Thanks for watching, and do check out the www.lexicallab.website for more of this kind of thing if you've enjoyed the video. Thank you.